Given it's your first estimates, I'd hate you to think you were going to get away without being called. So,
give him a hard time.
Good evening, Senator.
Good evening.
Marshal Steve Chappell, Chief Air Force. My colleagues would agree with you.
And congratulations on your appointment.
Thank you.
Can I take you to Air 555? I've followed this with interest and reading a few articles in the media. There's a lot of discussion about the aircraft being fitted with a whole range of things that we won't go into detail here, but I have a question in terms of the status of the program in terms of its certification and whether it is on track to meet our expected performance requirements, both from a platform perspective in terms of airworthiness, but also the systems performance that we're expecting. Obviously not expecting details on what the systems do, but just is it on track to enter service in accordance with our expected timeframe?
Senator, thank you for your question. It's a developmental first-type system, as I know you're aware, so there are some schedule and associated risks. I'm just going to ask AVM Ben Sleeman, Head of Air Capability, to provide a few details in line with your question.
Okay,
and then we may have some follow-ons from CASG as well.
Thank you.
Good evening, Senator. Air Vice Marshal Ben Sleeman, Head of Air Force Capability. As the Chief said, it is a developmental aircraft. I would summarise it as saying that it is going to deliver the capability requested. It was replacing the old P3 EW variant with a newer equipment, very much baselined with US Air Force equipment, and it will deliver that equipment as we asked it to.
Sure. That's not quite my question, though, in terms of the platform. I'm conscious when you stuff lots of equipment into an aircraft, and as you say, developmental, power budgets, weight and balance, performance issues, the whole package. Are we on track to get certification in the time frame we expect, or are there some unexpected hiccups that we need to work through?
There has been, I'll pass to my CASG counterpart in a sec, Senator, but there has been some hiccups with FAA certification in the US. We had some extra or additional test points added to that program, and it has passed those milestones. And so I believe it is on track, but I'll offer CASG the opportunity to comment.
Yeah, thank you, Air Vice Marshal Graham Edwards, Capability Acquisition and Support Group, Senator. As you're right there, we have taken complex mission systems, putting it into a Gulfstream business jet, and a number of the integration activities you alluded to, so weight and balance, cooling, electrical power, all those things were front of mind, and we have worked through there. We end up with a certification through FAA for the airworthiness side for it, and then we go into mission systems testing with an experienced team over in the States.
Sure. Your tense is a little ambiguous there, though. You've not actually clearly articulated that we have completed airworthiness and are into missions testing, or that is the process that we are expecting to follow. Which one is it?
The FAA testing has concluded. The analysis of that testing by FAA to give the certification is ongoing. In parallel with that has been laboratory testing for the mission systems and then ground testing for it.
So what was your expected date for a type acceptance by the RAAF?
So as Air Vice Marshal Sleeman said, we had some delays in that flight testing. So some of the early flight testing indicated that we needed to do some software changes. Those software changes occurred earlier this year and were validated, revalidated and placed in there.
And so do we have a time frame for that FAA-led or supervised activity to be complete?
We are tracking the FAA certification. Is due. I was trying to recall the number, the dates off my head there. It's in the short term. In what I'm saying there, in the next few months.
Okay. And so how is that going to affect what was our planned schedule with when we now expect to see it move into systems test?
So let's look at you found my notes.
So, Chief, you're the capability manager. I'm assuming you're tracking this to know how much delay it's going to be in terms of your obligations for the raise, train, sustain function and delivery to JOC.
Senator, I don't have that information in front of me. We'll take the question on notice and come back to you.
So I'm just a little concerned that the major projects report shows a big green, all on track, but what I'm hearing here is that it's a complex program, I understand that, but that also indicates that it comes with hurdles that we have to overcome, and I would expect a major projects report to actually be upfront about that and go, developmental project, we are facing some hurdles, we think we'll get there, because to the casual reader, a big green would indicate that it's going to be on schedule with no doubts at all in terms of the delivered capability. Am I off the mark there, or is there a disparity between that green light and where we're actually at?
I understand your question, Senator, and the point you're making. We'll take it on notice and come back to you. I don't have that information in front of you.
Sure. So CDF and Secretary put this project aside. In terms of the governance and due diligence around the major projects report, which the taxpayer, the Parliament uses to get a snapshot of where Defence is up to, what capability assurance, if you want to use that word, are you applying to how that information is presented in the report such that the Parliament can be confident that that actually represents a pretty robust snapshot of where any of those projects is at?
Senator Fawcett, I can answer from my previous role. I know the major projects report goes through the Defence Investment Committee, subject to the scrutiny that committee provides to it before it is then presented to government. So it has considerable internal review to ensure the accuracy of that report.
So one of the things, having just come back from a couple of weeks in Washington where I've met with the DOT&E there, they're a group that the Pentagon doesn't like because they shine light on these sorts of issues and basically give an independent assessment of the status of capabilities so the Congress can get a clear view of the money that's been appropriated for a program of record as to whether it's going to deliver or not. What I'm seeing here is that there is still a gap in our governance processes, that we have a project that understandably has some issues, but what's reported seems to have gone through that process without appropriate independent scrutiny to go, this is not a green light. How are we going to resolve that if Defence doesn't actually decide to support something like the Capability Assurance Agency that the Senate passed legislation for earlier this year?
Senator, it does go through scrutiny beyond the authors of the document. That is part of the internal process to make sure that that report is as accurate as we can make it.
Mm-hmm. New VCDF, any comments?
I don't have anything to add. Sorry, Senator. Air Marshal Rob Chipman, Vice Chief of the Defence Force. The only thing I would say is that the major project review is a report against any amendments that have been approved by government. So if there are adjustments to the project's schedule that are approved by government, then the major project report is reporting against those adjustments. And in this case, it's reporting against a revised schedule that we are now on track.
Sure. How explicit, though, is the report in terms of identifying to the Parliament, here was the original appropriation and proposed schedule, versus here is the change, and we're now on track for the change?
I might invite DepSep Kazji to come to the table to explain. It's my understanding that it reports against the current contemporary approved project from the government. Any approved amendments to it?
Sure, but from a transparency perspective, given that the average member of Parliament, even in a committee that's focused on it, doesn't necessarily go back and double check against what second pass approval actually signed off on. They see a green light, they assume this is exactly what we signed up for. I'm not critical of the fact there are delays, that's just real life with leading edge equipment. But the Parliament expects transparency, the taxpayer expects to know whether there have been issues along the way. Mr Deeble.
Thank you very much, Senator. The MPR process tracks it against evidence provided by us. That is, against an approved baseline by government. Sometimes those baselines do change. I'd note that in the MPR, the dates that you would normally expect are not there because this is a highly classified capability and it was deemed to have security issues associated with it. I can assure you that this particular program has undergone additional scrutiny as a result of some of the issues that we've encountered with the flight test associated with the Gulfstream aircraft, and as the Air Vice Marshal stated, some delays to that FAA certification. You would note that in the discussions we've had with the JCPAA that this is being tracked as a project of interest, and that's available and has been stated in the open forum. So we are tracking this program. We are applying the due diligence associated with it. We are tracking and working very closely with the US government because this is done and achieved through an FMS case, and we're working closely with the USAF to address the issues that have been encountered on the program.
And just perhaps further to Mr Deeble's testimony, obviously the government did seek to progress a Defence Committee where there would be an environment where more sensitive issues could be discussed. That unfortunately wasn't supported in the Senate, I think, by your party, Senator Fawcett. So, you know,
very good reasons, Minister, because we actually want to protect the information that's provided to the committee. But yes,
is that the reason? Is it, Senator? I hadn't understood that. I thought there were other reasons.